I often wonder what people think goes on in the dynamics of a narcissistic family unit. And, you know, post abuse, we are in denial of not only the situation itself, the abuse, them not being as we thought they were, and this relationship being somehow fake, or as we now understand it, being a shared fantasy. We get lost in that thing trying to understand it for quite some time, and it takes a fucking long time to understand it. It's incredibly complex. Within that dynamic, we get glimpses of ourselves and we start inspecting what's going on within us, where we've been throughout our life, what things have occurred, what relationships have been like, how we've reacted to things, how we've seen things in our life, how we've perceived other people and ourselves emotionally and through attachment and all those things that sort of made up who we are, who we were before this sort of traumatic, sort of fragmenting relationship that's left you not knowing who you are at all. Whenever we go back, we start inspecting our lives, we can very easily go into denial in regards to what's going on in our childhood family dynamic and our current relationship with our parents, if you're lucky to still have one of them, or if they're not here, the relationship you had. We can still in favour of the shared fantasy that exists within these family dynamics in the hope of keeping the role, even if you're the scapegoat, because it upsets the balance, because the rest of the family will battle to keep in their roles. Even the ones who are getting severely abused, they will do it by carrying on with their own loss of themselves by the same repeating pattern in order to keep the attachment that they've been used to. It's very hard for people to understand, especially those who haven't been through it. Maybe those are the people who it happened to once and they don't really have to look at their childhood dynamics, and they they get lost in the abuser's sort of evilness and their separateness and their coldness. Really just see the badness in them and the goodness in themselves, and we can understand that. But those who've been through it on a repeated basis, on a pattern, on a cycle of finding the same kind of familiarity in others, the same toxic cycles of behaviour, the same allure, the same shared fantasy that ended in the same way, giving you a repeating dynamic within you that's now causing you a lot of internal serious disruption and dysregulation. You're wondering why you're like this. But the denial within us, even if we do go and approach it and we get rejected, we get kicked out of the family dynamics, and we can see the badness. And everybody who has had to leave that childhood family dynamic, has to go no contact with their parents, knows it's the last thing they want to do. They will have tried every single fucking thing they can to find the love that they never had and wanted and deserved as a child. This fixation to seek approval or be shown loyalty to. And this is object relations at play. Not all of us who went through that narcissistic family dynamic turned out to be narcissistic, obviously, or even worse, pathologically disordered, but maybe in our reactionary ways, sort of being, you know, injustice, things like that, that the narcissist would fight so hard for, we think is true because we believe our parents, that we then mirror back with our own emotions, only get chastised for because it's been projectively identified into us. As children, we've been assigned roles. We have the lost child who's probably been the eldest, who's been the first child that came in that the narcissist realised didn't complete them and didn't get rid of those persecutory voices. Abused for the longest, shut down internally, will go on to have a terrible life. The second child comes in, Would have been idealized a little bit more, love bombed a little bit more because they got a little bit more hope and they're really wanting it to happen because they live in this fantasy delusion. Every single person coming through their life merging to them, and that includes their children. It doesn't happen then as well, so eventually that child becomes a narcissistic extension. That child is protectively identified. All the traits and behaviours are encouraged and chastised at the same time. A true dichotomous relationship. And then the golden child comes along. The beautiful child that was finally going to free them. The child that was to be all the traits would like to be, but you're not allowed to show any of your own narcissistic tendencies, any of your own self esteem as a child, any of your own primary narcissism, giving you a glimpse of yourself, enough to find your good enough sense of mother, insidious, horrendous form of abuse. If we continue to ignore our relating style to others in terms of finding toxic people, in terms of how we negate ourselves, in terms of how we shut ourselves down in favour of speaking up whenever we're screaming no inside, it's very, very hard as a child of a narcissist to accept that that parent has never, ever, ever attached to them. And that is from a child who hasn't went on to become pathologically disordered. Yes, attachment styles have been an issue. The inability to love myself in the favour of loving others intensely has been an issue. My inability to see others in their emotional intent and attachment to me has been an issue because I've been veiled, smoked and mirrored, devalued, idealized and devalued and idealized. It's been a repeating cycle of a lifelong pattern. Narcissistic families, the abuse in it isn't always big abuse to you. It could be big abuse to another person in the family that causes a major trauma in you. The insidious nature of negating, of neglecting, of internalizing that negation and neglect causes a lack in our psychological and emotional structure, in our resilience, being able to emphatically, vociferously defend ourselves. Find out who you are structurally, vertically as a human being. Rebuild from there. Seeking your own justice and revealing your own healthy anger starts with saying no.